In the histology, you can then pick up on the adeno side, which has different hormone-producing cells, orange-looking cells, acidophils, dark cells, right in here, blue to blackish color, those are basophils. And then half of them don't stain much at all, right in here, chromophobes. And that you should be aware that chromophobes are just sleeping or dormant acidophils and basophils. And that they cycle through periods of activity and inactivity. We'll do a little more on those in a moment. You then have the IG cleft. This is the pars intermedia, which is a no ID. So you go right into the neurohypophysis, posterior side. These are just neurons, specialized neurons called pituocytes. Shattered glass is the description. And that most important would be these little bluish pools that you'd find amongst those pituocytes. This is a great example. Those are the herring bodies. There are hormones stored in those little areas. Talk more about those in lecture. And then if we magnify on a better preparation of adenohypophysis, you can clearly see the orange to reddish cells like this versus the blue to purple cytoplasm of these cells. So these would be the perfect examples of acidophils, about 35% of the cells in the adenohypophysis, versus basophils, about 15% of the cells. But then you get the ones that don't stain much at all. Say they're relatively unstained. These are chromophobes. Down here, chromophobes. So it definitely doesn't have a stain to it where it's sort of hazy. That's chromophobes. And the same thing with the basophils. These relatively unstained here, and here, and here. Just a little hazy. Sort of tells you it's a sleeping basophil. And that I would only show a definite dark stain to say those are basophils or those are acidophils. I say about half of everything here is chromophobe. Acidophil versus basophil. These are red blood cells, don't let that throw you. Just in the capillaries running through this endocrine tissue. All right. We then go to the thyroid. Adam's apple right there, tip of the larynx. Go below it, you got this little, in this case, very large butterfly, which is draped over your trachea. It's right underneath it right there. This is about 5 to 6 times larger than normal. That's why the dissection was done to show this goiter or enlarged thyroid. So we get a more normal example, about 20, 30 grams. This is the butterfly you're looking for with the trachea running down through here. And then be aware in the thyroid, in the gross anatomy, underneath it, little tiny flecks of tissue. Best example right there. If that's left out a little longer, it gets a little browner, more oxidized. Looks just like a little apple seed stuck on the underside of the thyroid. But now you're seeing parathyroids, entirely different tissues stuck into the thyroid. So thyroid, like 30, 40 grams. Parathyroids all together, maybe a little over 1/10 of a gram. So very difficult to isolate those. Now, I will always show you them together. So you always have thyroid to key on. We'll see that in a moment. But for thyroid, you would hope a lot of slides would be like this next week, where you get this perfect looking appearance, follicles with follicular cells. These are very active, producing colloid in the space, even retrieving the colloid in these bubbles. Should know the technical name for those. Reabsorption lacunae, all right? And these cells are reaching out and pulling that jelly-like material back into the cells and then mobilizing the thyroid hormone from it into the blood over here. So these, I want you to go out into the world and proclaim that these are functional areas in the thyroid for retrieving the colloid to then mobilize thyroid hormone into the blood. There's a lot of misinformation having to do with these little bubbles. And then as you look around, you find a few cells that are just sort of hanging outside the ring. So more oval nuclei. I really have no intention of asking you about these. Those are the forgotten cells, the parafolliculars. We will touch on them in lecture. They have nothing to do with thyroid hormone, part of your calcium control rather than BMR. Also, your third dimensional analysis, where you see all these cells in these big clusters. And those can't be parafolliculars. Too numerous, nuclei too round. These are the same as these. So in the third dimension, all you're seeing here is a scalped follicle. That the blade just went through the side, but didn't catch the colloidal area. So you're just seeing the side of a follicle here with these follicular cells. So that's just part of the third dimension in understanding what that mass of cells would be. You've got storage thyroid, where now masses of colloid, 3 to 4 months in storage here, so much so that your follicular cells are almost flat. They almost look squamosal. Still technically cuboidal. And then you don't have much retrieval, if anything, going on here. You don't have those reabsorption lacunae bubbles at all. It tells you it's just holding it in storage. It's typical to find this side by side with active. I'll show you a biopsy in the review, the pre-exam. Okay, and then you get the combined tissues. I'll always show you this to be able to tell what this is. It looks like a huge lymph node stuck up into the thyroid. This is only about 30x, so scanning look of thyroid, a little washed out there, remnants of colloid, and then this bean, apple seed stuck into it. So there's a parathyroid gland. These are fat cells, so don't worry about those. But amongst these parathyroid cells, as the individual gets older, some of them start to enlarge. So you get a little area like that, kick it up another 150x, and this is what you're seeing. A cell that's now getting a lot more cytoplasm around it compared to these other parathyroid cells. Well, that has a special name called oxyphil. What does an oxyphil do? Still a mystery as to what's going on here. There's a physical change, but as far as a functional significance, all we know for sure to date is that they get ever more numerous as you age. So here are the normal looking parathyroid cells, and then here are whole clumps of oxyphils, all that cytoplasm around them. But there's no functional problem here. Still functions the same, no pathology, no cancerous concerns or anything like that. It's just something that transitions or changes with age. And then these are blood vessels running through the parathyroid. So I'd sort of like you to know oxyphils for something we still don't know as to why that happens, what's going on there. Okay, then off to the top of the kidneys. Got your left kidney showing the left adrenal gland. So this one showing a nice hilum with the renal vein, renal artery, ureter. That's all nicely displayed there. And that when we yank out the adrenals, they're noted for how flat they are. Very flattened masses. And even in the gross, you can see the cortex versus the medulla. So the white area is the adrenal cortex, and then the dark inside, the medulla. Same thing on this one. So the histology makes immediate sense. The white zone is the cortex out here, and then in here the medulla. There, where I'll always show you the large blood vessels cleaned out. Wash them out so you get that Swiss cheese appearance. So you get all these large vessels deep down in the tissue. It's usually enough to call it adrenal gland. And even more specifically, the medulla of the adrenal gland. And then you've got the cortex from here to here. Got to know the first two layers, little balls of cells. Glomerulosa, looks like the glomeruli in the renal cortex. But these are just clumps of cells, not blood vessels. Percent in the human adrenal cortex, and no more than 10% glomerulosa. And then you drop down to all of this. Sort of looks like liver because it has little sinusoids. Zona fasciculata, just fasciculata is fine. 85% minimum for humans. Vast majority is fasciculata. And then don't worry about that little edge, reticularis. And then you're into the medulla, the adrenaline producer, or epinephrine. You need to know the name of the cells that make that secretion. Have an affinity for chromium stains, so they're chromaffin cells. Think chromium affinity, chromaffins. Dark staining cells signifying their production of adrenaline. All right, Swiss cheese, gotta be adrenal.